Last season when I tested Polaris' Expedition Adventure Northstar, I focused almost entirely on how great it was at getting you and your family into the wilderness in complete comfort. My family still loves spending time on the trails in the Expedition Adventure, and we do rides as a family often, something my wife and kids wouldn't be nearly as happy to do if the Expedition Adventure Northstar wasn't so comfortable. But there's an entirely different side to going on a real expedition that I didn't touch on at all during that test. If you want a real adventure, you're gonna have to brave some gnarly terrain. If anyone can go where you're planning to go, that's just a ride. The real adventure starts when things get technical. So, I wanted to see just how good the Expedition Adventure Northstar was when it was put to the test on the gnarliest terrain I could find. Could it actually hold its own in the biggest ruts and rocks? Could you really conquer trails that other vehicles simply couldn't? To find out, I took our expedition to the gnarliest trails in our area, a popular Jeep spot called the Minden Off-Road Park. Big Jeeps do a serious number on trails. They wreck them, to put it bluntly, but that's exactly what I was looking for. The first thing I noticed about the expedition on this type of terrain was how well the suspension articulated in really big ruts and rocks. For a vehicle with sway bars, its front and rear double arm suspension was able to flex well into its 14 inches of travel and keep the vehicle level when the ground beneath it was definitely not. If this were my personal rig, I think the first upgrade I'd do would be a set of quick release sway bar links to help it articulate even better. Now, having said that, I have nothing to complain about. This thing is impressive. The next thing that impressed me was how much traction the 30-inch Pro Armor Crawler XP tires provided. Hitting the biggest rocks slow and low resulted in almost no wheel spin. The tires gripped the rocks like a cat on a screen door, and the excellent torque from the Expedition's 114 horsepower, 999cc twin allowed it to just pull itself up the steepest stuff. I was also very impressed with how well the VersaTrack on-demand 4x4 system worked. There was never a situation where I felt this 4x4 system was holding me back from conquering an obstacle. The only thing I did feel held me back in only a few situations was the length of the Adventure 5's chassis. It's a full 5-seater, so it's really long. There's no way around that. And because of this, it would rub the chassis on big rocks and ledges once in a while. Now, with that said, it was far less frequent than I expected, and thanks to the arched front and rear lower arms, it was only the chassis that ever made contact. I never once felt any other part of the vehicle get caught up. Polaris spec'd the Northstar edition of the Expedition Adventure with a set of Fox QS3 position-sensitive shocks, which, as you know, are a favorite of the entire DirtTrax crew. My first move when I get a vehicle with these shocks is to set them all to full soft, which is where I have them set on the Expedition. At full soft, they offer both an extremely plush and smooth ride on the trails and don't at all hinder the suspension's ability to articulate over the most brutal terrain. I've mentioned the power of the Expedition's engine already, but there's a few additional observations I want to make here. The Expedition has 3 throttle modes: Comfort, Standard, and Sport. Now, being in Comfort mode makes it so much easier to crawl smoothly through really rough terrain. However, this version of the Expedition is large and heavy, and when the time comes to hit some smoother, less technical trails, its 114 horsepower feels very underwhelming and not at all impressive. There's more than enough bottom end to crawl through the most aggressive terrain, but when things get faster, the lack of power definitely affects the excitement level. The only other negative I have to mention is that visibility from the driver's seat of the Expedition isn't really that great. Now, when you're on a typical trail, it's completely fine, but when you're trying to pick your way through excessively gnarly and technical terrain, your sight lines are very limited. The high door sills and hood make you feel very safe and secure inside the vehicle and do a great job of keeping everyone protected from mud and debris, but the trade-off is visibility, and it's really only an issue when the terrain is the roughest and you need it the most. After spending a very long day in the rocks, I found very few things about the Expedition that I don't like. It seemed like every obstacle was just another opportunity for this side-by-side to impress me over and over again. I can't count the number of times I thought, well, this is probably going to end bad, but let's give it a shot anyway, only to find out the Expedition had no trouble with it and usually made these situations seem easy. If your idea of an adventure is to set your destination to places that only the bravest few have ever been able to reach, I can honestly say Polaris' Expedition Adventure is a side-by-side that will get you there and back every time. No, it's not a dedicated or specialized rock crawler, but in the gnarliest terrain you can find, it doesn't really feel very far off of one.